This episode is brought to you by the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Learn more at slashandcast.net.
There are legends around here.
Who died and made you fucking king of the zombies?
Even if only in their own minds. Forgotten, but not yet dead.
I want to play a game.
Some have tried to stop them, but they keep coming back.
Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Coming to entertain you. They are the Crystal Lake Soldiers.
Welcome back to the Crystal Lake Soldiers podcast. My name's Isaiah, joined by Mark and Ted tonight. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right, man. Doing pretty good.
Great. Wonderful. And actually, Sean is not here. He was having some PC issues. If he joins later on in the episode, he'll join us. But otherwise, we got kind of a special episode tonight. We are joined by some of the guys from the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. How are you all doing tonight?
Oh,
lovely.
Great.
Wonderful.
So we're kind of doing an episode tonight just to kind of close out November, and we hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving as you're listening to this. But we figured we'd close it out just to invite some of the guys from the podcast network on tonight and just kind of discuss what got us into horror. We did this kind of an episode actually earlier on this year where we kind of talked about what got us into horror. But so this is going to be kind of like a part two, and just to kind of include the podcast network. Before we get into all that, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your podcasts?
I guess I'll start. Fuck it. Hey, everyone. It's me, Lane, from the Lane Shift, where, of course, everything gets freaking geeky. It's not much, I just talk about movies, horror, gaming, and all that, being silly as fuck because I'm a goofy person. Basically it. Be sure to check me out when you get the chance. And thank you for having me, by the way, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, man, this is exciting. Thanks for having me. My name's Andy. I co-host the Dead in Santa Carla podcast with my buddy Brian. Every Monday we drop new episodes where we talk about a different horror movie. Some good, some bad. Whichever way it goes, we always have a good time. But thanks for having me too, guys.
Definitely.
I'm Kyle from the Trick or Treaters podcast, and just like the Dead Santa Carla podcast, we review a different horror movie. We drop it every Friday, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
My name is Caleb, also known as Spooky Clutter from the C-Files podcast. We discuss horror and sci-fi, whether that be movies, TV shows, any kind of news topics about that. We also do little fan fictions, if you will, pinning up characters from different franchises against each other, seeing who would win. So, yeah, it's always a fun time, and thank you very much for having us on. It's really cool. Carter couldn't join us because he's busy, but he's here in spirit. So, thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, we are definitely glad to have you guys here. It's been great kind of getting to know, some of the people on the podcast network and whatnot over the last couple of months. It's been a great experience for us. I mean, it's helped kind of start to grow our audience a little bit too, because I've been, as monthly kind of watching numbers and stuff, seeing that number grow has been, makes you hopeful, because, I mean, you start this, and we started this just to kind of do something to have a little bit of fun, and because we always talk about movies all the time, and it's been a great experience. We've been doing it for almost not quite a year and a half, but we're getting close. I mean, in the next few months, it'll be a year and a half that we've been doing this. So, but getting to collab with you guys has been great. Whether it's been streams or whatever the case may be, and just in general, it's been a great experience for us. So we're definitely happy to have you guys here, and I think this is going to be a fun episode. Talking about, kind of getting to know each other a little bit more and seeing what got us into horror movies. So I'm super pumped and super excited for this. So for this week, we're not going to have any news or anything like that. I think it's going to be a long enough episode, just kind of shooting the shit and just talking, about what interests us and what got us into all this. So Who would like to start us off?
Isaiah first, and I think it's time to tell our guests the truth. We don't pay our guests; we charge them. So your bills are in the mail. So
all right, I'm leaving.
pay promptly.
For a quick second, guys, I'm out.
We charge by the minute, so you're still getting billed.
Somebody get my publicist on the phone. This is bullshit.
You can charge my assistant Katrina. She'll take your invoice.
That's great. Oh my god, that's so good. Leave it to Ted to just throw out weird shit like that. I love it. I love it though.
I'll just say stupid stuff tonight.
I didn't doubt it. I didn't doubt you one bit when you said that. I knew you were going to say something stupid tonight.
Shelly, you told me this podcast was legit. What is this?
I would see my lawyer if I had one.
Get weird or get. I live by the rule: you either get weird or get out, baby. So we're gonna get weird tonight.
Yep, and Ted's going to be weird. I'll auto-tune tonight. That's going to be great. I love it.
Whoa!
Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and start this off with this little discussion here. Just kind of talk about what kind of got me into horror and whatnot. So, it all kind of started back when I was a kid, and I did talk about this a little bit in our first episode that we did this, but when I was about, I think it was 5 or 6, and my parents. My dad was kind of more into horror, I think, than my mom was. My mom always tried to keep us from watching horror movies and whatnot. But I remember I was about 5 or 6, and my first experience was Nightmare on Elm Street. So, automatically, because, that's a fairly scary movie, especially if you're a kid. On top of it, I made it about halfway through the movie, I think. And what had happened, because I remember the movie getting shut off about the point where Nancy was in the dream and going to visit Rod as he was in jail. That's kind of where he got shut off, and I was pretty freaked out at that point because, Freddy's pretty fucking freaky looking, especially in the first one, and the music and everything just kind of really is very, very creepy. And so I remember for about the next 2 weeks after that, I had like these bad nightmares, and it was like the same dream over and over again. And it kind of started out and what I remember from the dream is walking into the bathroom and hearing that, the children sing the nursery rhyme, and the shower's on and everything. And I remember walking up and I could hear this low, creepy voice and whatnot coming from the shower, and, walking up to the shower, and I wasn't able to control my own movement in the dream and whatnot, and opening the shower and waking up, and that kind of went on for about 2 weeks. And it was at least a few years later, my aunt was babysitting me and I think my brothers at the time, and my cousin decided to watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I was so freaked out because for a time after that, for the next 3 or 4 years or whatever, how long it ever was, I was completely like freaked out by Freddy Krueger. Like my one cousin on my dad's side had like this huge Freddy Krueger poster, and it was from part 2, I think, hanging on his bedroom door. And I would not go upstairs to, his bedroom or anything because I was so freaked out by the poster and whatnot. So that had kind of went on for years. And I just remember just freaking out when my other cousin, when my aunt was babysitting, decided to watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I was so freaked out. I ran to my aunt, and my aunt, and I love her so much, she's like, just go sit down and watch the movie. So they basically made me watch Nightmare on Elm Street again. But at that point, I ended up friggin' loving it, watching it that second time. And that just kind of got me started. And we went back the next day and I watched it again. And that just kind of started that whole process with me starting to get into horror and loving it. Because from there, I remember after Nightmare on Elm Street, Tales from the Crypt, because that was kind of around the time that Tales from the Crypt was pretty popular. So we ended up watching that a lot. And All Through the House was my personal favorite. The Christmas one with Larry Drake as the Psycho Santa. which was obviously a remake of the one from the movie from the 70s. So I love that, and watched Tales from the Crypt all the time because it was in syndication at that point, and so it was on like late night TV, and so I was watching that all the time. And even from there, like getting into like some of the more kid friendly stuff, you'd think like Beetlejuice, because they had the cartoon of that. They even had Tales from the Crypt Keepers, different stuff like that. So that kind of built my foundation for getting into horror. But then also horror was kind of like an outlet for me, because for the longest time, because I was bullied like relentlessly as a kid, because I was the quiet kid. I didn't really talk to anybody and didn't really have many friends and whatnot. So between that and just all the shit going on at home with like my parents getting a divorce and constantly fighting, and then my dad leaving and coming back again multiple times, that was kind of an outlet for me just to kind of, I guess in a way, heal. I don't know why. It's just horror movies just really struck a chord with me, and it kind of just let me get out of that reality, even just for a short period of time, to not have to worry about what was going on around me. And so that kind of helped, guide me in a way, for a lack of a better term. And it kind of just started me on that path. And, obviously now I'm a huge movie collector, and obviously we're doing this podcast and everything now, talking about horror every week. And so it's been a great avenue for me to go through, and it's kind of helped shape my life. So.
Wow, that's really interesting. What's crazy to me though is if you're the quiet kid, how the hell did you get bullied? I was always friends with the quiet kids because, well, they didn't have any much to talk about. That's what was cool.
Well, let me rephrase that. I was the quiet kid, but I was also the fat kid, and poorly dressed because we were poor. So there was kind of a lot of factors working against me there.
Yeah, I can totally relate because when I was growing up, it was like cool to be a bully back then. It was like the cool thing. It's not like kids growing up nowadays, like you're like 18, 20-year-old kids now, like being into horror and being nerdy and being different is the cool thing now.
Right.
Back when we were growing up, if you were different, you got picked on. And if you didn't learn to fight back, or you didn't have someone to help you, it just kept happening, and it never stopped until you got, in my case, got bigger than everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No,
I was lucky growing up. I was good looking and everybody loved me.
Yeah, okay.
I got along with everyone. I got along with everyone in junior, like through high school. I got along with everyone. I was kind of like Ferris Bueller in the sense that I got along with everyone. Like, I liked the geeks, the sluts, the whatever she says in the movie, all of them. That was kind of me.
Everybody liked
Andy was definitely familiar with the sluts.
Well, it was funny because I was like the goofy kid. I was the goofy kid, and I liked horror, but I was like the funny, goofy kid. But I also played a lot of sports too. So it was. I did a lot of things. So.
Me, I was always just the nice kid. So I had like one bully in my entire life, and it was 6th grade, and that was it. And I don't remember the fucker's name, but I just remember then I was like the first time I got a bully. Ever since then, like I've never been bullied. I was just a nice kid who loved horror, but never talked about it until now.
Right.
I had a bully in elementary school. It was like 2nd or 3rd grade. I can't remember exactly. And then I was upset and crying about it at home, and he was like hitting me and stuff. And my dad said, "Well, if this is really bothering you, just walk up and punch him in the mouth." So I walked up and I punched him in the mouth. I never got bullied again.
Yeah. It worked.
It did. And then in high school, I didn't like anybody. I didn't talk to anybody. I just
Yeah, though, I definitely feel with horror as an escape, though. Horror was definitely one of my biggest escapes growing up. And I think the reason why, I guess I'll kick off my origin of what got me into horror. Why not? Since I'm already talking. If y'all don't mind, just sit back, enjoy my origin story. So I was really young when I got into horror, actually. I want to say I've probably been watching the shit since I was 3, but I started getting memories when I was about 4 or 5. So we're gonna kick off around there. I grew up around the era where HBO was like streaming a lot. It was up in its growth at the time. When TV really started booming. And so I remember being 5, I had sat down on the couch and Friday the 13th Part 7 and Part 6 played that day. And that's when I was first introduced to Jason, was those 2 movies. And, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I want to keep watching this. And then I saw Pennywise. I was so goddamn scared of Tim Curry's Pennywise. I hid behind the chimney and watched it from my chimney. I was so goddamn scared. And yet I still stayed with horror. Like, I watched even more scary movies. Dead Silence. That movie fucking haunts me to this day.
Okay.
And made me a fear of puppets. Yes, wooden little people I'm afraid of because of that goddamn movie.
Goddamn James Wan, that son of a bitch.
Yeah, man. I don't think it was the puppets that freaked me out, but they had to bring in a clown puppet who licks this motherfucker's ear and made me a germaphobe while we're at it.
Right.
Jesus.
Oh my God, that movie, man. And afterwards, I was a young sibling, me and my twin brother. And so we kind of grew up with our older siblings, and they started getting into horror because, as y'all said, nowadays horror became like the norm. It was all about it, and they were the generation who was like, yeah, horror is cool as fuck. It's dope. It's lit, whatever we say nowadays. And so, my sister, she was very big into horror. She introduced me to The Strangers, which is really good. Insidious, this is when, we started really getting into it. I was into my teens, and of course I couldn't go and watch horror movies because, sorry, you have to be an adult in order to piss yourself scared. So, she kind of, thank God for her being into horror. I started going to movie theaters with her. We started watching them on DVD, and eventually I fell in love with it, and I really got into it into my later teens, and here I am now making a podcast with minor horror in it. And with minor, I mean, I surprisingly talk a lot about it.
Right.
One of the horror movies that I do regret watching is goddamn Cannibal Holocaust, though.
Oh
That turned me away from horror. I was like, thank fuck I did not grow up around this time this movie was made, or else I would not be into horror. I thank God that my dad was not horny that time.
Jeez. Yeah, Cannibal Holocaust is one of those movies because I'm a huge animal lover, and I watched it once, and I can't watch it.
Yeah, fuck that movie, man.
Yeah.
I've said it before. It shouldn't be called Cannibal Holocaust. It should be called Rape Holocaust because there's so much more rape in that movie than anything else. It's
right?
Disgusting. It's absolutely abhorrent. I can't stand that fucking movement.
Yeah, I know. I was like, and someone's like, we were talking the other day on Twitter about it, and she's like, the person we were talking, and she's like, oh, you can just I fast forward through some scenes. I was like, well, if I do that, I'm just gonna watch the in city scenes and then be over with it. Like, I'm not going back to that fucking Amazon forest again. They can go fuck themselves on that.
Yeah, I'd rather watch Cannibal Women in the
Avocado Jungle.
The Avocado Jungle of Death.
Yep.
Yeah.
That movie's great. I love
Much
that
better movie.
Yeah. I mean, and it's crazy because I actually watched Cannibal Holocaust this year, and this is me growing up into horror for years and years. And I puked when I watched that movie. I had to go and throw up in the toilet. Like, I actually threw up, and I was like, I can't finish this movie. I finished it somehow. It took me 2 weeks, but I finished it. And after that,
2 weeks.
2 fucking weeks to finish this movie. I shit you not. Like, I had to pause it, turn it off, come back to it later, remember what scene I was on. But hey,
it's like a Band-Aid. Just pull it off. Don't wait 2 weeks.
Right?
For God's sakes. Get through the hour and a half, 2 hour runtime, whatever it is, and call it good. And never watch it again.
Shit or get off the pot, man.
Yeah.
Man up.
Yeah, you must like being tortured. God, this movie made me sick. That's why I stretched it out over a 2 week span.
Well, look, in my here's my fairness. I finished it. Not a lot of people can say it, but I finished it.
Damn right.
How do you make it last 2 weeks?
Really?
Look, as surprisingly as busy as my life is, it can work. Oh my, dude! Look, after I watched that turtle, because I love turtles, man. After I watched what happened to Mr. Turtle, I cried. I fucking cried. I was like, I can't, man. I just have to turn this movie off real quick.
On the crying with the animals thing, like not horror, but like I forgot which one. There's an Ace Ventura movie where like at the start, one of his animals, he's climbing on like a wire over a mountain and it falls. I fucking cried at that part.
I know which one you're talking about. Now I can't think of it. Damn it! It's not Pet Detective.
No, it's When Nature Calls.
When Nature Calls.
Yeah, I cried at that
Those
point.
are
I was like,
cliffhanger parody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what basically got me into horror was Jason, and that's why to this day I love Jason, especially realizing that the first Jason movie I saw was with Kane Hodder, and that's why to this day, if you always hear me talk about Kane, I will preach about him like a preacher of God. You know, like I'm like, Kane is this. This is what we need in horror. Fuck anything else. Put big scary man in costume and make him kill horny people. That is it. That is all we need. Other than that, yeah, that's how I got into horror.
Yeah.
The Lane shit.
Yeah, that's not horror for Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder just calls that another Tuesday. What are you talking about?
Jeez.
He watches Cannibal Holocaust on loop on every Sunday.
It's funny because if you watched any of the documentary footage or behind the scenes footage of Hatchet, Adam Green talks about how he has to bring Kane Hodder his nightly peanut butter and jelly sandwich with glass of milk.
That's so funny. That's so good.
He's just a big old teddy bear.
That's so funny.
Oh yeah. I guess I'll go next if no one else wants to go. I'll go. It's Andy here. Hi guys. Yeah, how did I get into horror? It's a couple of things. I had a unique childhood, especially for an 80s kid. My dad first opened up an independent mom and pop video store in 1985, and I was 4 when he opened. And I used to just prowl the shelves and look at all these old, vintage VHS covers. And the horror section is what blew me away. It was so in essence, I was first drawn to horror just from the awesome VHS jackets. And I would look at them. They always have those cool pictures. You guys know all these awesome 80s. I mean, God. I remember that like Chopping Mall was one of them. Like, what the fuck is that? Well, four of me was like, I was like, what is that? I was just very curious because the artwork and the horror compared to everything else just looked plain and normal. Mm-hmm. Every type of other, especially like the drama and comedy, it all just looked kind of normal. But the horror always stood out to me. So that's kind of how I got started. And to top it all off, my grandmother Helen, she's the one that I started watching horror movies with first. Oh,
wow.
I think one of the first movies we watched together was Poltergeist. And I think that was the first horror movie I'd ever watched. And then we moved on to like Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Halloween from 1978. And once I figured out the horror heroes and the horror icons being Jason, Freddy, and Michael, I was sucked in. And then when, by the time Child's Play came out in the late 80s, I was like, oh, I'm ready for this shit. This is nothing. This is Child's Play, literally. So like, that's kind of honestly between growing up in a video store and little influence from my grandma. I remember, I don't know if you guys are those who are old enough to remember this, USA Network back in like it probably would have been like 91. It was like early 90s somewhere. They used to do on Friday the 13th. They would do marathons of the Friday movies on the USA Network.
Yep.
Do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking dope, right? Kind of like how AMC does every Halloween season. So like I remember one night in particular, my grandmother and I was probably 11. We watched like Friday 4, 5, 6, and 7, like all back to back to back, dudes. Like it was like the greatest thing in the world. But like the fact that I grew up in a video store, not only, I mean, it got me in the film in general. Like I love horrors. Horror is my favorite genre. But I'm a film and movie connoisseur, like through the roof. It's always been one of my biggest hobbies. It's my biggest hobbies my whole life have been movies and sports. That's always been, and they still are.
Yep.
So, you know, yeah, growing up in a video store, definitely, it was unique because, you know, like I kind of feel bad because I know I always hear these stories of people saying like I miss going to the video store with my family on a Friday night. It's like, damn, I never really got to do that. But I'm like, you know what? I had it. I shouldn't be complaining. Like, this is great. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Perfect childhood for like perfect. I couldn't have my dad do anything else or your parents do anything else. I'm telling you guys, you would have wished your parents owned a video store when you were a kid. I promise you. It was the great, because I included like video games too, guys.
Yeah.
So like, you know, it's like when a new console would come out. But yeah, horror was always my jam. It was always my favorite genre. I expanded my film genre as I got older, into my teens. But really, as a kid, I mean, I got hooked on the horror icons, and that was, you know, Freddy, Jason, Michael, Chucky. That's what really, really sucked me in. And honestly, I think that's how they kind of marketed those movies. They were targeting us.
Oh, definitely.
If you were like, they could say they were, but they were like, the horror icon appealed to young people, to kids. It did, because it's the weirdest thing. I've always found horror icons interesting because they're really the bad guy, but they're also they're why we're watching it. And they're like almost like a horror hero. It's kind of funny. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much that was my biggest influence for sure, was just growing up in a video store and just being mesmerized by these amazing VHS jackets. Like, oh my God. And then also my grandma Helen, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. I can relate with you on the VHS covers and stuff. Like, I used to walk in Blockbuster and just be amazed at the horror section, just the covers. I wouldn't even know what the movie is, but I remember would look cool.
The first time I ever saw the Return of the Living Dead cover, which is honestly, and actually I remember it was one of like, because he opened up in '85. It was one of the first new releases that we got into the store, like right after he first opened. And I thought it was the coolest shit, and I had to watch it right away. And I've been like a huge fucking Clu Gulager stan ever since. Love that man. But like that's another movie that like really got me though, because I think it was good it worked out this way, but I as a kid I tended to like it was weird. I got the humor part of it at like 6 years old of Return of the Living Dead. Like, it's so strange, but I did. And I know I'm a weird kid. Like, I thought it was funny, and it is. And like, you watch it this years later, it is. It's like a classic horror comedy, you know. But I could go on and on of all the movies that were super influential, but like, I mean, Fright Night from 1985 is another one that was super influential. That was one of the first horror movies. It had to be one of the first 5 horror movies I watched. And just, it goes on and on. But a lot of stuff that came out from like 84 to 89 are definitely my biggest influences for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, yeah, let's just face it. Horror in the 80s was like top peak.
Yeah.
Nothing could top 80s horror.
No, I agree. I think it's the best. It's my favorite decade of horror, for sure.
I didn't even grow up in the 80s. I should tell you something.
Yeah. Especially as someone who loves more of the slashers than anything, the 80s is top notch.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, My Bloody Valentine's is like one that comes to mind as 80s slashers and Sleepaway Camp and
Sleepaway Camp. Oh my god!
Like
that movie needs love. That movie never gets appreciated.
It doesn't.
I love that entire series. Honestly, I don't think Pamela Springsteen gets enough credit for her portrayal of Angela.
Oh yeah,
No, definitely not.
She's hella. No, I like her, and for sure, no doubt. Yeah, I'd rather watch a lot of those than some stuff. I mean, I like a lot of modern horror. I do. And a lot. I mean, I feel like it's really picked up steam in the last 10 years. If you really think about it, since 2010, there's been a shit ton of really good horror films. There really have been, and not only just great horror films, but just great new horror filmmakers coming onto the scene. So that's exciting. That's what gets me excited.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go next. So I mean, just like everybody else has already pretty much touched on. I had almost the same upbringing of. I believe the first horror movie I ever saw was the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was on TV, and I was like instantly hooked. As soon, the scene I remember is whenever he grabs Pam whenever she's trying to escape, and so like I've always been hooked since that.
Mm-hmm.
It was that, and Jason Takes Manhattan was like one of my first ones as well, and so that was
nice.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Introduction to Friday 13th. I think it was on one of the marathon. It was during a marathon that I saw it on. So I saw those two, and then I've seen I checked out the rest of them. But like one of the things that like really hooked me into horror, like when I was young, when I was a kid, I really liked to read. And so at school, when we'd have like the test where you had to read a book and stuff like that. I would choose. I would normally do Goosebumps. I loved Goosebumps, especially the Fear Street series from R.L. Stine. Love that series. But
I grew up with that, so I know.
Yeah, but one of the books that like really drew me into everything was when I discovered Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yes.
Like
that.
Yeah. That series really stuck with me. Also, on Nickelodeon, there was a show called Are You Afraid of the Dark? And so I loved watching that. And just like everybody else, I love Tales from the Crypt. Was one of my favorite TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this hasn't been mentioned yet, but like when other kids my age, when they were all watching Power Rangers and had the crush on the pink Power Ranger, I was all about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right.
Hell yes. Man after my own heart.
No, I know.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Whoa. You're just bringing nostalgia and happiness to my mind. Thank you.
But yeah, like mine was more of like shows like Goosebumps and reading the books and then Tales from the Crypt and Buffy, and then of course all the horror movies and stuff. Till this day though, like as much as I love horror, there's only been one movie that's ever like really stuck with me as far as like scary. It's not really scary. It's more of like a psychological thing. Ever since I saw Final Destination 2, I will not get behind a log truck. Like I will do everything
right
to avoid log trucks.
Nightmare on Elm, the original Nightmare really freaked me out as a kid. I think that movie scared me the most as a kid for sure.
Yeah,
because it's the idea of going to sleep. But here's the thing: even though it did scare the shit out of me, and it did, I kept watching it, and I wanted to watch. Like I remember when Dream Warriors came out. I'd already seen the first two, and I was like, "Let's go," even though it freaked me out. I had more nightmares about Freddy than any of them, like I would have nightmares commonly with Freddy, but I still watched him. I didn't give a shit. I didn't care.
That's so crazy though. Like everyone's always had a nightmare about Freddy. I mean, like I've never been afraid of Freddy. Like as weird as that sounds, I shit you not. Like I've been afraid of a lot, like Leatherface, but Jason and Freddy nah. Like when I saw Ghostface for the first time, he freaked me out. You know, like I don't know
Did
why.
you watch
though,
the original Nightmare first? Is that the first one you watched?
Yes, the original.
See that movie, and that doesn't freak. See, to me, some people aren't. You're not alone there, Lane. Some people aren't, but to me, just the idea. Just the one reason Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror movie of all time. But the reason why I think it's so scary, at least it's scary for me, is just that story that Wes Craven wrote. The idea that if you fall asleep and this killer kills you in your dreams, it's for real. That is fucking terrifying because everyone has to sleep. You have to fucking sleep. I mean, you can't just stay awake for a week. You gotta sleep.
You'll die.
I know. So it's like, pick your fucking poison. Do I want to die in my dreams or just die of natural causes from not sleeping? My Lord.
Also, I'm not gonna lie though. Around the end, the big climactic fight of Freddy and Nancy, it kind of did remind me of Home Alone. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
you know, Home Alone reminded you of Nightmare, is what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Considering Nightmare came out 8 years before it.
Well, remember.
It depends on which one you watch first.
Yeah, I had both on DVD, and these are what I saw first. Like, so that's probably where I got that from, because I probably saw Home Alone first, because growing up, my family was not super into horror, and they were more like, oh no, joy, positive movies. I'm like, fuck no, I want to see a teenager get ripped and cut, whatever, you know? Like,
I know.
I want to see Jason say, who the fuck is in my camp? Like,
it's funny you said Home Alone, because like because like I said, I was raised in a video store, so like I had some friends that were like, I mean, that they were like, dude, that's cool. Let's go over to Andy's. You can get all the free movies and games and shit. So, like they'd want to be like, hey guys, I'm gonna go to the video store with my dad to pick up some stuff. What do you guys want? And they'd be like, Home Alone, Encino Man, stuff like that. I'm like, guys, let's watch fucking Friday 6. What's the fucking matter with you? You know, but
right?
like not a lot of my friends, some of them did, but I'm trying to think. No, well, some of them did. Some of them did watch horror with me, but for the most part, it was mostly just action and comedies whenever I had friends over. But like, I never really had like best friends that were like super into horror like me. Definitely not.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, ever since I've joined the network, y'all have only been the ones that I really get to sit down and talk with horror. Like everyone else I hang out with, they're like, horror's scary. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking horror. It's supposed to be scary. Like, I'm sorry. Jason's supposed to hand out ice cream cones and Chucky's supposed to be friendly. Like, no, dude, like, come on. That's what makes it great, is being scared. Like, you know, it's like, so finally getting to chat about it's kind of nice, because again, like Andy says, you know, growing up, you don't have a lot of horror friends for some weird reason. Like, what the hell?
I'd have to force them to watch it. I'd have to like, guys, just give it a shot, please. I'd be like begging my friends to watch, like, you know, Fright Night with me,
right?
And Candyman and shit like that.
Candyman.
Yeah. That I watched. I've never seen Candyman. I watched that this year. So whoever I cut off, by the way, my bad. But I did watch that this year and I loved it.
Thank you.
I truly believe that is definitely an underappreciated film.
It's one of the most underrated. And here's the thing: it came out in '92. Don't know. Ask me how I know that, but I do. It came out in '92, and like it still holds the fuck up. That movie looks so good. It's crazy. It's crazy how like that movie, especially nowadays with, you know, everything full restoration, 4K, HD, all that bullshit. Like when that's one movie, it's like, damn, I can't believe how good that still looks. It's crazy.
Yeah. One of the series that was always on TV when I was growing up, and like one that I really like, even though like it gets shit on sometimes because it's got some pretty bad ones in the franchise, but I love the Leprechaun series.
Oh, Leprechaun's great.
Leprechaun is great.
I do too.
Leprechaun is so good. Up until what was the In the Hood? That was fucking terrible.
Dude. I'll get down on some In the Hood too, bro. I'll get down on it. I will.
The best one is when he went to Las Vegas. and you can fight me on that.
I love that one. I love that one. That
Number
one's
two? Yeah, number two.
no number three.
Number
Yeah,
Three's
three.
three's
Yeah.
when they go to Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I actually like the most recent one they did, the reboot. I think it's like I think it's actually like it's more like a direct sequel to one because it has stuff.
It is.
Yeah, it was actually really good. I was shocked.
Fun. I got a fun story about Leprechaun. So, as I told y'all, I had older siblings, right? And they saw Leprechaun upon release, and my sister, she was really afraid of it. So my family thought it'd be funny to hide under her bed and grab her by the foot and say, "I want me go."
Yeah.
She has been horror. She's
fine.
She is deadly afraid of leprechauns because of that.
An eye for an eye, me dear.
Yeah.
That's great.
I watched a bunch of movies that like people like nowadays consider like underrated, and at the time I didn't realize that they weren't more known. Like I remember I used to love watching Pumpkinhead, and then I found out that a lot of people hadn't even seen Pumpkinhead, and stuff like that.
Yeah, for me, my kind of horror origin story, if you will, is it's a little different. When I was growing up, I never had a lot of exposure to the classic slashers or most of the popular horror movies that come out today. My story is more like from the earliest age that I can remember. There were two horror movies, like genuine horror movies, that I remember watching. One of them was John Carpenter's The Fog, and the other was Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yes.
and
Yes.
as far as The Fog goes, that's the one movie that still like freaks me out to this day. Like I can watch it as many times, and I love it. I really love it, but I don't know what it is, but I always get a little bit of an uneasy feeling whenever I watch the movie, and I can't. I don't have like a proper explanation. It's just something that always gets at my brain every time I watch it. I love John Carpenter, and especially more so now because I've been watching more of that stuff. But another other movies that I have been watching were Predator and Aliens, and that's actually how I got over my fear of like Silver Bullet, because I was also really afraid of Silver Bullet. So in my mind, whenever I watch Silver Bullet, I always imagined like, oh, that would be cool if the Predator would show up and kick the werewolf's ass. That's how that's how I always get through the movie, because I always imagine like, oh yeah, the Predator's going to show up and whoop this werewolf's ass. So that's how I would get through those horror movies. And then I also watched the Goosebumps TV show.
Yeah.
And there was actually a show that my mom kept watching every time it came on to Sci-Fi. This was back in the early 2000s, mind you. It was called it was Stephen King's Rose Red.
Oh
yeah.
Yep.
That's
good actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that from somewhere and it just clicked in my mind. I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that also freaked me out. Like whenever it would show like the ghosts, they always looked like zombies or mummies or something, and it's just the way they looked always like creeped me out. But it was always the fog that would get me. So fast forward to 2017. At this point, I had very minimal knowledge about Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason Voorhees. But then a little game called Friday the 13th, the game, was announced. And that's when I started going through YouTube. And I saw some gameplay from H2O Delirious and a few other people. And then that's when I found Slash and Cast. Slash and Cast is what got me into every other horror movie that I hadn't seen up until that point. I started watching Riley and Nick, their original show, the original Slash and Cast podcast, where they had an entire table set up with different merchandise, and they would just straight up talk about these movies, and then they started talking about the game. And ever since then, I had been following them, and then I finally became a member of their YouTube channel. And then from there, Riley hooked me up on helping build this new gaming PC that I'm currently using right now, and that's what's been helping me do this podcast. So I owe it to Riley for getting me where I am today, being part of this network. Because while I was building my PC, he was like, "Hey, man, I'm starting up this network, and I can show you how to do podcasts if you want to." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So that's who got me onto most of the horror films that we all watch today. The first Jason that I actually seen was Part 6 Jason. That was my first Friday film.
Nice.
So
My favorite.
Yeah, that's also my favorite. I love Part 6. So, and then I started watching Halloween, and it's funny because my dad watched some of this stuff when he was younger, but he got away from that in the 80s because he was watching all of the Rocky films, Predator, Rambo. He was going more the action genre route. He didn't pay too much attention to a lot of the horror films.
Sure.
There were a few that he was paying attention to. Like he said he watched The Thing, but he was kind of turned off from it because he was watching other stuff. But ever since I had been starting this podcast, me and my co-host Carter, what we do is when we do movie reviews, we actually watch the film first and then immediately record afterwards after we took some notes, just so we can have like a fresh mindset on the movie. And my dad would join us sometimes, and he thanked me for getting him back into some of these things because he remembers seeing some of the movies, like the Friday movies or the Halloween films, and it had just been years since he'd seen it. And the funny thing is that my mom was more into horror stuff than he was, but of course we all had like whenever we had like family movie nights when I was younger, it would always be The Fog or Silver Bullet, and those would be like the movies. Like Silver Bullet we actually rented from the Blockbuster video store or the Hollywood video store.
Okay.
And those are the movies that kind of stayed fresh with me in my mind when I was younger. So that's kind of like my little origin story, if you will.
Yeah, it's neat that you mentioned the Friday 13th game and finding Slashing Cast that, because that's actually how I found Slashing Cast as well. Because I remember hearing about Friday the 13th, the game. I looked up on YouTube gameplay, and Slashing Cast was one of the first videos I saw, and so I watched it. I really liked it the way it was done, so I just subscribed to their channel.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Although for me, I didn't watch gameplay. I can't even remember which episode it was, but it was when they were talking about the game in their podcast, and I was like, I kind of like the way these guys have their setup. So I kind of got connected with them, and ever since then, here I am.
Yeah. While we're talking about it, I'll shine some light as well. It's actually funny, kind of similar. I actually found Slashing Cast because, as I told y'all, the more I watched horror, the more I just got into it. I actually wanted to watch horror channels on YouTube as well, because at one time in my life, just horror was just all about me. And I actually just Googled horror channels, and then YouTube came up, and then I scrolled through and found Slashing Cast, and ever since then, I've listened through. And honestly, the way that just Nick and Riley, I don't know how to put it, but I really love what they bring to Slashing Cast, because the way they you can tell how close they are in like a subtle way, and it's so cool to see how two people are so similar and they get along and talk about what they really enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's what really draws Slashing Cast to me, because when you sit there and you see people like co-host and all that, you always hear them like in more of an audio form with podcasts, but to see Nick and Riley like face to face and chat with each other, that's really dope.
Yeah, for me, whenever they would live stream Friday the 13th, I was there whenever like some of the early Friday the 13th game memes came up, like the Let Her Go meme. That was fucking hilarious. And we all have PTSD from that stuff early on in the game, don't we?
Yeah.
But,
right.
Yeah. And then they early on when sometimes they would do like Dead by Daylight streams, but they would get like no views. And the same thing with videos. So they actually got away from doing Dead by Daylight, but now more recently, we've been playing together more, and we would get like about 100+ views. So it's always a fun time, going on live stream and playing like that. I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, I found them during the beta for Friday the 13th, the game. That's how I discovered their channel, and I've just been watching ever since. Because I liked it that, like you guys said, I love the format that they did when Slashing Cast was, was an actual 30-40 minute podcast show essentially. when they go over like current news and talk about movies, and it was yeah. But I found them because of Friday the 13th game during the beta time.
I love how Friday 13th the game has like brought so many of us together.
Yeah. Our podcast doesn't. The Dead in Santa Carla podcast doesn't exist without it. I met Brian playing the game. Brian playing the game.
It's the same with this podcast.
Right.
I wouldn't know any of these guys if it wasn't for that game.
Same.
Well, even though that the lane shift is a loner, if it wasn't for Friday 13th, I wouldn't have never been inspired to make a podcast.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
If it would have been for the game, I would have never found Slap.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's so funny, like with all y'all with co-hosts, like I feel so awkward. Like I'm pretty sure I'm like the only person here who does their own show, like currently.
Well,
hey man,
you know how awesome that is that you do that. It's just you doing your own show. I
Oh,
couldn't
it's
imagine
nice.
it by myself.
I know.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
For me, because my co-host happens to be my neighbor, and he doesn't have any friends at all. It's just him here. Same thing with me. I mean, I have a few friends, but I don't really talk to them much anymore. And we always play online together on PlayStation. And he has a good talent for talking. And when you get him on a certain subject, he can talk your ear off for hours. And so my thought was when Riley had pitched to me the idea of doing the podcast, I was telling myself, okay, my next door neighbor isn't really doing much aside from working on farm stuff, because we're kind of out in the country a little bit. So he helps his dad out with farm stuff, and he likes movies, he likes video games, and it was actually because of me that he got onto Friday the 13th the game, because I remember the first day that I actually logged on to Friday the 13th the game, I was really nervous. I was like, oh my god, I don't want to play this by myself. So I called my friend up, and I called Carter up, and I'm like, Carter, you gotta get this game with me. I'm too scared to play it by myself. So he finally caved in, and he bought the game. And ever since then, we have been playing it. We've had some really great times. We had some really shitty times, but overall, it was really fun. So getting him on this podcast was a good thing for him, because he doesn't have pretty much anybody else to talk to. So utilizing his talent for talking, I felt was very important, because otherwise it would have been just me doing this, and I felt, to me, it would feel irresponsible for me to leave him out of something like this, because there's a lot of untapped potential that he has. So I told myself, I got to get him on this podcast. We got to do this together, and so this is where we are today, and I'm really glad that I did it. So
Nice. Oh yeah.
Very cool.
It seems like to me we all need to get together for an episode on like our favorite memories of the game.
Oh yeah.
Right? I was just sitting there thinking about that in my head too. I was like, damn, we should make an episode about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all enjoy y'all's co-host, and I'm sure your co-hosts feel the mutual. But I mean,
all except for Ted. He's a jerk.
No, but I mean, honestly, like, the one cool thing is, at least when you're all by yourself, you can name your own show after you, hence the Lane Show. Hence my minor narcissism.
Are you sure it's minor? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Shots fired.
No, it is not. Hey, you're just jealous that I can look at myself and want to bang myself.
Jesus.
You know what? Speaking
Calm down, Buffalo Bill.
Would you do me? I do me. I do me good. Goodbye, horse.
Well, speaking of podcast names, the original idea, like, there were a few inspirations I had for naming the podcast the C-Files. So back in 2014, 2015, back when a few of our friends were still here in the area, we had a YouTube channel called the J2C Files. And basically that was just us doing videos where we had a Facebook group we were a part of. It was a homeschoolers group. and one of our friends, Jake, had a show called Your Week with Jake, where he would pick questions from the Facebook group and answer them. So we started doing that, and we named our channel the J2C Files. And we had a fairly popular video. I mean, I say popular; it only had like 100 views, but back then it was pretty good. And basically, it was Carter raging at Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and it was fucking funny. What I can do is I can find the video later on, and I'll post it in the chat, in the Discord chat, so you guys can see Carter raging at Black Ops when he was younger. And fair warning, there's a lot of swearing in it, but it's hilarious because what we did is we had another friend of mine playing against him in a one-on-one multiplayer match, and Carter wasn't very good at Call of Duty, so he would always like overreact on shit. So he would be swearing in every other sentence. But after we did that, we did a few more of the videos where we answer questions from the Facebook group, and then we kind of all split apart. Everybody went their own separate ways, except for me and Carter. So then I got the idea, well, if we're going to do this podcast, I'd like to sort of resurrect the J2C Files. But since the J's left, because the J2C, we had our friend Jake, and then we had another guy named Josh, and then it was me and Carter. So we took it. So the J's left, but the C stayed behind. So it became the C Files. And then another inspiration was the X Files. Like it literally, like the little catchphrase we always say at the end of our episode is the entertainment is out there. Like the truth is out there from the X Files. And the thing is that my mom is an X Files fan, and it's also because of her that I was watching the X Files. And back when I was building my computer, I had been binge watching the X Files. So, as we were getting the podcast set up, I was telling myself, man, I gotta think of a name. So I like the X Files, and then I had the memory of the J2C Files, and that's where we got the C Files podcast. So
very cool. All right, Mark and Ted, haven't heard much from you guys.
Well, man, like we've talked about this before, and mine's pretty similar to a lot of you guys. Like Andy, I grew up watching things with my grandmother, but she was a little old school. She didn't watch any. We watched a lot of like the black and white old school horror. Sure. My favorite growing up was Night of the Living Dead by George Romero. Watched some of the Universal horror, but other than that, we just watched like cartoony, cutesy stuff. The first like actual modern horror I watched was Halloween 2. I watched it with my stepdad, and I was 5 years old, and that movie scared the absolute piss out of me, quite literally. And
I shot him 6 times.
Well, there was the scene where he melted the nurse's face in the hot tub.
Oh yeah.
And I was only like 5. I didn't understand what a hot tub was. I didn't know like what happened. I thought he just magically melted her face in the bathtub. So I would not go to the bathroom by myself for months. I was terrified that I was going to get my face melted off in the fucking bathtub.
That's funny.
And then Chucky scared the shit out of me too, because I had a lot of like toys that looked similar to Good Guy, and like just things like that. Just thinking that like the toy would come alive, and it wasn't really scary thinking that the doll was going after the kid. It was like the doll was going after everybody else, and the kid was getting blamed for it. That scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And then I got into it. It was like an infection that grew in me. You know, I started reading the comics, the horror comics, and playing video games, watching Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and Scooby Doo and all the things that were tailored to kids that brought them into horror. And here I am now. I mean, you would think with my first experience with Halloween 2, I would be a huge Michael fan, but I'm not really that big into Halloween personally, because I think a lot of the movies suck, honestly.
Yeah.
So I quickly, I was like in a pre-teenage age when I watched Friday the 13th Part 6, and I thought this is the perfect slasher movie. And ever since I've been in love with Jason, and then I had the Friday the 13th game pre-order as soon as it was available. It was like a year and a half before the game came out or something like that. And everything else is history.
Yeah.
Part 6, Jason Lives that's a good way to put it. That is almost a perfect slasher film. It is.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with y'all on that one. You
Yeah.
know, it really does bring balance in that one. That is for sure. You know, you don't have like some weird shit going on. It definitely was part 5.
You mean you don't have someone going? You don't have two people having sex in bed, and the guy going, "Man, you have great nipple placement, baby." You mean it doesn't have stuff like that in it? Okay, yeah, that.
No, it's, I thought that was the end of the song.
Exactly.
Or I mean,
I said on a previous part.
Pair of pliers, Jason. No.
Jason Lives is
Part
the only.
6 is the best.
I believe it's the only
Part
one
6
without
is the
nudity
best
in the
movie
whole
to
series.
introduce children
Yeah,
to.
yeah, you're right. It's the only one, and it's funny because Joe Bob was talking on one of his shows that he got a letter from, or he was reading one of the viewer letters where a guy wrote him and thanked him for playing Friday 6 on his show because it was the only way he was able to watch it because his mom wouldn't let him see nudity. And I was just thinking to myself, there was no nudity in the theatrical version. Your mom could have let you watch that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, for me, it's like as far as my favorite Friday film, I want to say it's Part 6, but sometimes I'm torn between Part 4 and Part 6.
Yeah.
Just because Part 6 was my first Friday film, and then I watched Part 4, and then I watched Part 7, and then Part 5 that I can remember.
Mhm.
And but between Part 4 and Part 6, those are like my two favorite ones.
Same, yeah. 4 was fucking brutal, man. You've never seen Jason so fucking pissed off.
Oh yeah.
Well, four created like this different dynamic that we hadn't seen, and actually, is it the only? Let me think real quick. Well, no, 7 kind of has that dynamic, but not quite as tight knit as 4. 4 is like the only one where you had like the full family dynamic. Because usually it's usually just kids at Crystal Lake getting slaughtered. You had that, but on top of that, you also had the Jarvis family, and it was a full family. You had a mom, 2 kids, and that I think that's what works to Final Chapter's most benefit is that you have this family that you fucking care about and that you like don't want to see. You don't want them to die, and you love them. And I think that's to me always been Final Chapter's biggest strength. And not to mention you have Tom Savini returning to do the kills, so that definitely helps too.
Mhm.
Definitely helps too.
You also have characters that you actually give a shit about. Like
I was just about to say.
most of the characters, you remember their names no matter how unimportant they were.
Sure.
Gordo. That's all we cared about was Gordo.
Yeah.
Like I can't. There's like
But there is one question I always have whenever I watch a movie, and it was a question that I still have when we actually reviewed it. Was who was it? Did Gordo just like jump out the window himself, or did Jason actually throw him out? Because I still can't figure that out.
Yeah.
I believe he jumped.
I think he jumped. Yeah,
I would say he jumped because the way it looks, because if Gordo was thrown, he probably would have been more like he would have been thrown more through like his back landing into the window.
Yeah.
But as you clearly see, it's like he's in full leap motion, as if he said, "Oh fuck, dead bodies, I'm out." Raggy, he gets out of there, type deal. But yeah, and another unanswered question was, until Friday 13th the game with the Jarvis tapes, did Gordo survive? And from Friday 13th the game speculation, Gordo did.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Which makes me happy because Gordo was good boy. So yeah, he definitely deserved to live.
He was a good boy.
He really was. I'm sorry, I'm an animal lover. So.
I'll tell you that as a big Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise fan, that franchise has the most fucking confusing timeline ever.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I want to do an episode one day on our podcast where we go over those timelines because you're right. It's pretty. It's fuckery. It's fuckery. You really just get 1 and 2, and then it's a shit show after that.
Not only do they have to deal with the shitty timeline, they change the fucking family's name almost every other movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, if you compared that to the Halloween's timeline, Halloween's more straighter than that and more on point.
It actually is. Sadly, it is. Hell, fucking Hellraiser has a better timeline than a more straighter timeline than fucking Texas. For God's sakes.
Real.
Dude, Hellraiser Deader has more fucking continuity to the fucking original Hellraisers than fucking It's true. Sad but true. I love the Texas. I'm with you too, Kyle. The first Texas is probably my second. It's probably my second or third favorite horror film of all time. Yeah, I think it's one of the best for sure. Just not even just if I'm like going to say that, I think it's. I'm a big. I like the second one too.
I'm about to say, I gotta go.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. We all just stopped talking for a second.
It just got really awkwardly silent there.
Yeah.
I brought up Texas too, and everyone's like, "Fuck."
I love Texas too.
I love
man.
Texas
That's a
too.
fun fucking movie.
Lick my plate, you dog dick.
Fucking Chop Top. He makes that.
Yeah, I'm about to say Bill Moseley makes that fucking movie.
Yes.
Like honestly, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Bill in that film,
yeah,
he should have been in the first one.
An unpopular opinion. Part 2 has my favorite Leatherface in the entire franchise. I said it.
Oh, agreed.
It's.
I think I agree.
Dude, the fucking the wiggle thrust coming. Come on.
You like horny Leatherface?
Come on. We joke all the time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is Brian and I's favorite horror love story for sure.
Dude, it's funny. Bill Moseley's talked before on a podcast about how he had to do an award show and he was supposed to give an award to Rob Zombie, and he got permission to dress up as Chop Top.
That's so awesome.
That's great.
To give the award, and people were kind of confused as what the hell, why the hell he was Chop Top.
It's a damn crime that character never returned. You could sell it. I mean, he falls down the thing. We didn't actually see him die.
Right?
That's one thing. A lot of these franchises, man, they just even Friday, like pretty much, like I like Part 8. Don't get me wrong, but like it's crazy to me that we never got Tina Shepard back from Part 7. It's funny. I was, dude, literally in the mid 90s. This would have been like 95. I'm just like geeking out over like horror ideas because I was just obsessed even then. I always said, even when I was a teenager, why don't they make? You know what it was? It was because I watched Jason Goes to Hell and I was so pissed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was, actually. I was so angry. Like, I don't hate any movies except that. But that's the only movie on the planet that I
that
do
movie.
I hate that movie. But after
Halloween Resurrection,
dude, I can watch Halloween Resurrection and have a good time. I watch Jason Goes to Hell. I'm just pissed. I'm just mad.
Yep.
I'm just angry. So, like, after I watched that for the first time, I remember I started like, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? I always thought it would be my Friday the 13th movie pitch was Tommy and Tina met at a mental hospital, fell in love, and they're older now, and they battle Jason together. That was my idea. But
oh my god,
dude, I'm so cool. I'm down.
Because honestly, that's actually conceivable that they could have met both, like after the events of Part 6 and Part 7. Of course, it's conceivable that they could have met in like a hospital or whatnot. Yep. Absolutely conceivable. Yes,
yeah,
but no, we got Jason. We got a demon slug Jason and sent the fucker to outer space instead. So fuck it.
Yeah.
But hey, it's okay though.
You know, I was watching. This was a few months ago. I was watching that documentary, Crystal Lake Memories.
Yeah, it's so good.
I remember one of the ideas that somebody pitched was to get all the survivors from all the movies into one movie to battle Jason one last time.
Yeah, like all the final girls.
Yeah. And have Tommy in there too. I'd love to see something like that, to have like a big reunion type thing. Like, okay, we've all dealt with Jason at some point in time. let's team up and send this fucker to hell where he belongs, or something like that.
Yeah,
I'd love to see something like that.
Then we got big scary boy with mama issues sent to space.
That's what we got.
I unashamedly watched the entire Crystal Lakes documentary one sitting.
I did too. I did too.
I did too.
I did
sat
too.
in bed and couldn't turn it off. I had nothing else to do that day. I was like, "Fuck it, I'm watching all 8 hours."
I did. I binged the whole thing too. Yeah.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
but it's well worth it.
I don't know what it's just, man. Sean Cunningham really, man.
Fuck him.
Oh man. Oh my god.
Andy started.
Shameless plug. If you want to hear my thoughts, my complete thoughts on Sean Cunningham, listen to our recent Friday the 13th episode that we dropped this month.
Do it. It's great.
We closed that out. The good 30-40 minutes we ended that with just talking about Sean and his impact on the franchise, and
it's well worth it. It's well worth the listen.
It's fucking great.
Imagine costing your franchise millions of dollars and so much more and so many ideas just because you're selfish.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay. Well, we do get Tina back, coming back in Rose in
a fan film. Yeah, in a fan film. That's cool. No, hey man, it's better than nothing. Better than nothing.
Oh yeah. Isn't it crazy?
They announced she was coming back as Tina. I was like, yes.
Yep. It's crazy cool.
Very cool.
I mean, dude, imagine building a franchise and then fucking it over on the last two films and having a bunch of fans get together and make your franchise double times better.
Yeah, ever since when Friday the 13th the game announced the end of content, and subsequently since then, going on the F13 game subreddit is just so fucking toxic, dude.
Oh god,
I believe
it. You can't post anything positive on there without them, without somebody saying, "Oh, you're just a shill. You're just, I don't know what the term is, but like kissing their ass or something like that."
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, so Slash and Cast did a video. It was a parody of the Let Her Go meme, and I actually helped them out. Me and a few other guys were helping them. What we did was we went in game and we got different shots together, and so I decided to share that video on there because I mean it was a funny video, and it got like nobody looked at it except for like maybe one or two people, and they downvoted. I'm like, oh, what a waste. And then more recently, I posted another video where Riley's explaining the situation about the dedicated servers, and then I get a shit ton of like negative comments. Oh, he sounds like a fanboy or something, kissing their ass, and it was just like, man, this ain't even fucking worth it.
Well, they're just uninformed idiots. I mean, at the end of the day, like they still think Friday, like Gun Media, who the publishers for Friday, the game, are like getting sued or involved in lawsuit. It's like, you idiots. They're not the ones in the lawsuit.
Right.
And it just takes dude, Google. I just want to tell these fuckers. Anytime I see these fuckers, I go, I've even replied to them on Twitter before going, you should check google.com and search Friday the 13th lawsuit. It's a really cool website. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's really cool. You just go to google.com. It just takes 5 minutes of research and you could know what's going on. Not to mention, fucking this shit's public. Like fucking lawsuits or court shit is public fucking records. Like you can fucking find this shit out yourself. It's so stupid.
Yeah, and one of the like responses I got from posting up their video was it was like, why don't they just like post put up content on the game that isn't Friday the 13th related? I'm thinking to myself, what?
So that makes a whole lot of sense.
I mean, okay, I gave them like a simple explanation, like, okay, they were told that they cannot produce any more content. Even on one of their posts, Gun Media literally said, we can't even post a rock in the game because that would be considered adding content. And it's just not getting through their heads. This guy says, oh, why did they just post something non-Friday the 13th really? Like, oh my God, that's a brilliant fucking idea. Why didn't I think of that?
And and not to clown people who have not watched the Friday films. I don't mean this in this way, but a lot of these people who are complaining like this, that are just so misinformed and just don't know what the fuck the situation is. They're not even fans of the fucking movies anyway. Like they don't even know anything about it. Like they have no idea who Sean Cunningham is. Like they have no clue who he is. They don't. God, they definitely don't know who Victor Miller is. So it's like it's so I anymore though. I just laugh. You gotta just laugh it off because it's just they're idiots. They're just complete fools. Like I saw Wes Keltner tweet something last night about something from Reddit actually, where someone was literally comparing what gun media is doing to a Nazi regime. That they're brainwashing people to have their back, and that's like to make. Oh my God. Like it's like, come on, people. It's this isn't hard to figure out. Like you just gonna literally go on Google. Friday the 13th lawsuit. Who does it involve? Bam, done. That's it.
I know.
But I don't know, Lane. Your generation's kind of fucked up, man. Can't even go to Google.
Generation. That's more like my brother's generation.
Dude, I just envision most of these people are complaining like between the ages 16 and 21. That just I just got that like.
You're right. Don't include me in this generation, all right? Because my dad kind of nutted me out in the 80s, and I'm just gonna say that. Noted, all right. Like I was generation.
You didn't want to be there anyway. We had bullies back then. You didn't want to be there. It's no good.
Oh, dude.
Right.
The bullies.
It's great.
Like they disappeared. All right, hold on. Look at gun media. They get bullied every day.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Wes Keltner, Wes can't even post anything on Twitter without somebody saying, "Oh, Friday the 13th. Why'd you abandon the game? You just abandoned the game." It's like, dude. Where the fuck have you been? Are you been living under a fucking rock in the fucking center of the earth? I mean, look, the stupidity of people today that they don't do their research. They don't even really care. They just see like a headline and then they just take it as fact. They don't do their own research, and it would be so easy. And you would think that after all these years that a settlement would have been nice, but you got greedy fucking assholes that just can't bury the past.
No,
it's like, okay,
it's stupid. Yeah, no, you're right. Because at the end of the day, like I don't think Sean should be completely shut out. I don't think he should. But at the same time, Victor Miller should not be shut out either.
Right.
So so it's like to me, since this all went first, God, this June will come up on 3 years since the shit went down with no content in the game. It was like May or June of 2018, and like I remember at the time, I'm like, okay, there should be able to some type of settlement, and I would figure they would. And then Halloween 2018 came out and made $150 million on like a $10 million budget, and not all it made me think of, and not to mention I loved Halloween 2018. And then I'm like, okay, so you have a good Halloween entry. This series is back, better than ever, better than best since the original, in my opinion. And then now it's making a shit ton of money. It's with Universal Studios. And these two knuckleheads are in court arguing over fucking peanuts. Like, what are we doing?
Right?
I mean, like, if you like right now, if they would have settled this shit 2 years ago, we would dude, there'd probably be a Friday movie coming in 2021.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
Yeah,
and if you hire the right people, get the right get the right production company behind it, hire the right people to produce it, direct it, write it, all that shit can work out. I mean, Halloween 2018 is the Friday should cover whenever Friday gets its shit together. Someday it's gonna happen. We're gonna get another Friday movie. I don't know when. I would honestly think in the next 3 years it'll happen. I'm hoping. I think that's very possible.
I'm with you there.
And if it does happen, they need to take the blueprint of Halloween as far as like continuity to the original, continuity to this, continuity with characters. Like don't send them down to space. Don't make them a demon slug.
Right.
All this stuff. Like I don't even really want to reboot. I would like I would like some type of soft sequel. I would. Whether you pick up from 4, pick up from 6, pick up from 7, pick up from 2, I don't care. But I would like some type of soft sequel with continuity.
Yeah, if you think about like how much time has been wasted in core. I mean, the last Friday film we got was in 2009. And then the game came out and just brought everybody together. Had they, settled the lawsuit then I would probably surmise that to this day we would probably be getting some more content from the game, and we would be getting more movies. The franchise would be alive again.
Oh yeah.
And so they just need to get their shit together, because I'm almost convinced that Gun Media is working on a Halloween game. With the amount of popularity that Halloween 2018 reinvigorated into the franchise, I really feel like Gun Media is working on a Halloween game. They're going to be putting out more content, like more like NECA figures. I love the NECA figures. They're going to be pumping out more merchandise, and the franchise is going to be awesome. It's going to be really great. Yet Friday the 13th is still in a dormant stage because greedy assholes can't settle for a few pennies. It's just
really?
If they would come together and realize, okay, the success of Halloween, if that's anything to go by, just put that to Friday the 13th and you're fucking golden.
Yeah. It's crazy to me. I mean, I don't know if I'm in a minority here, but as a whole, the Friday franchise is better than Halloween. Now the first Halloween might be the best movie out of all of them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that, like as a franchise as a whole, there's no doubt in my mind Friday has, Friday's better as a whole. There's way more lows in the Halloween franchise, in my opinion, than Friday. And not to mention there's more movies in the Friday franchise.
Right.
So, even with that being said, I mean, if you just remove Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X from the Friday franchise, every goddamn one's watchable. I can't really say that about Halloween.
Yeah, I agree. Halloween 1 and 2 and even 3, I like those 3. I thought they were decent, but after that, I just like, the only thing I really like about the sequels is that they brought back Donald Pleasance as Loomis. Because I love Donald Pleasance.
Continuity,
he's a
baby.
Fantastic actor. So that's like one of the only reasons why I would watch it. But I don't ever refer to those movies when I say I'm a Halloween fan. I'm like, okay, I like the first 2. I even like Season of the Witch, even though majority of complaints were, it doesn't have Michael Myers in it, so I'm not going to watch it. It's like, dude, just watch that movie as its own thing. It has Tom Atkins in it. He's a great actor too, and I thought it was a decent film. And then I like the 2018 film. But Friday, I mean, to quote Joe Bob Briggs, he said these Friday guys made the same movie 9 different times. And that takes talent. So I mean, the franchise has a lot of popularity and a lot of life in it, but it's just being weighed down. I mean, essentially, the franchise, the best way I can represent it is that it's Jason at the end of Part 6. Jason is the whole Friday the 13th franchise, and the rock that he's chained to is the lawsuit. And we're just waiting for our Tina to show up to bring his ass back.
Yep.
All right.
Good analogy.
It just goes to show. I mean, I follow stuff like I always have. I mean, like, I because I was essentially raised in a video store. Like, I started following directors at a young age. I mean, and I'm talking like 8 years old. I'll never forget it when Child's Play came out.
Yeah,
I remember looking in the back of the box and I go, "Oh, Tom, the guy who directed Fright Night directed this. It's got to be good." And I'm like, oh my God, Jerry Dandridge is in this. This is awesome. He plays a detective. That's awesome. So I used to connect all that shit. But basically what I'm saying is, like, you got to hire competent people. And you want competent people making the decisions. Like even what Scream's doing, the team that they hired to direct this newest entry coming, like, that's probably going to end up being a really good hire. That's going to end up being good. Same thing with Halloween 2018. Same thing. It can be done. You just have to do it. You have to not only do you have to put competent people in charge of the production, you got to get people who also love the material. That's so crucial. That's why fucking Friday the 13th game looks so cool. And that's why everything's like, the Packanack house and the Higgins Haven house are so fucking identical to the movies because it was made by fans with passion. That's why. Yep. And that's why Halloween 2018 really works because they're huge Carpenter fans and they're huge Halloween fans. That's why it worked. So at the end of the day, where this franchise, where Friday really went downhill was when Sean got the rights back and took on the new line and didn't give a fuck and hired some fucking 22-year-old out of fucking NYU to direct Jason Goes to Hell and suggested remove the hockey mask for God knows what reason. So like,
idiot.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, he had. I ran it. I told you guys we had our Friday the 13th episode, and I ranted about this just recently. But I'll rant again real quick and real quick so everyone else can get some time. I mean, the fact, and this is coming to my point. You want people who know the material and care about the material. You don't want someone like Sean Cunningham calling the shots who hadn't seen parts 2 through 8. He self-admitted this, so he's developing. That's why Jason. That's what I said. When I realized all this years later that Sean hadn't seen 2 through 8, it made Jason Goes to Hell make so much more sense. Yeah. Because it fucking shows the decision making, who you hired, the choices, what to do with Jason in that movie. It shows it because they don't get it. So whenever we do get a Friday movie, you know, I just pray to God that they hire people who know this, one, who are talented, obviously.
Yep.
But 2, know the material and know the franchise.
Yeah, I think that was like one of the biggest things that kind of turned me off from Freddy vs. Jason. Like, I love that movie, but one of my biggest nitpicks was that you made Jason afraid of water. Like, theoretically,
that made fucking zero sense.
Theoretically, that would make sense if we hadn't had Jason going through water in subsequent movies up until that point.
Yep.
Yes.
You make Jason like, okay, I get it. You're trying to balance out, like, okay, so Freddy's afraid of fire, Jason's afraid of water. You're trying to make a balance on the power struggle.
Yep.
But you choose that very option. Like, okay,
I get what you're going. But here's what I was going to say real quick. Shannon Swift, who wrote that, they recently just came out and said that they were kind of basing that off. It's almost like a let's just put it this way. When they wrote both the FVJ and the reboot script, because they wrote both, it was more of like a soft sequel character. Like Jason's character was a soft playoff from like part 2 or 3, essentially.
Okay.
That's kind of where they were coming from when they wrote. But I don't disagree with you. Like I think it's I didn't like that. Well, they hired Ronnie Yu, who's a fine foreign film director, very good actually. But he had never seen the movies either. He had never seen
the problem I had.
Yeah, he'd only seen Friday 13th 1 and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. And it's like you said, Andy, that, you know, get people who know the franchise. That's one of the biggest mistakes that somebody can make when deciding who a director is. You got to get somebody who has a good knowledge of the lore that they're about to dive into. Otherwise, things are going to be like off. And that's like one thing that I complain about with The Predator is that, Shane Black was in the first one, but did he not like see any of the other movies? Because it just feels so off,
right? That
it feels like somebody else that had never seen a Predator movie, you know, didn't even.
And honestly, beyond just having like knowledge about it, it's like it's coming back to that thing, having passion about it. Because if they don't have a passion about what they're working with, if they're not like hardcore fans of it, they can know all that they know about the franchise and it could still be a shitty ass movie. So
no, and The Predator is a prime example. That's a great example. Honestly, I thought there was no way The Predator was going to suck, and I'm like you. Some of you guys mentioned it earlier. I was not a fan at all. Like I thought it was just mediocre at best. At best. And it was very disappointing because I thought it was a slam dunk can't miss, because not only does Shane Black have experience in the franchise, I mean, he dude, Shane Black wrote Lethal Weapon, for fuck's sakes. Shane Black's, I think he even co-wrote Monster Squad. So like Shane Black is a very competent filmmaker, director and writer, very, very talented. And the fact that he had experience in the franchise, I thought it was an excellent hire at the time. I remember when it was announced that he was directing it and writing the script, I'm like, oh my God, what a great hire. But it just goes to show you, it's still no guarantee.
Right.
And, know, based on some behind the scenes stuff that I was hearing, I think most of us have heard that there were, many reshoots for the film. Like they had many different ideas, so much so that they couldn't decide on a proper ending because they were going to bring Dutch in, but Arnold Schwarzenegger said no because like it was too small of a role, I think, and that's what I was hearing. So then they started like after the movie came out, they started releasing behind the scenes photos where they had fucking Ripley and Newt from the Alien franchise in that pod. And I'm thinking to myself, where the fuck was this going?
Yeah.
Like, okay, the ending we got was fucking ridiculous. It was the definition of over the top for a Iron Man Predator suit. I mean, with all those fucking cannons and lasers, I'm like, where the fuck is this going? Where is this going? But then when I see that they had Ripley and Newt plan, I'm like, what were you going to do with this? Where were you going to go from here?
Right.
Are you going to introduce time travel into this franchise when it's never been previously established? I mean, what are you doing?
Why can't we just honestly like bring I like the idea of bringing back Arnold. And honestly, you guys mentioned it earlier, but that was always my dream. Predator 3 was having Harrigan and Dutch, Glover and Arnold. I mean, that was always been my dream forever. Yeah. It's kind of it's I don't know. Glover's like, I think Arnie could do it, but Glover's like, God, Glover's like 82 now.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
He's like 80, I think. Yeah. But it's just I just can't we just they've dropped the ball, and Predator could have been a great franchise. It's I don't necessarily like even Predators. Like, I think that one's okay. I probably don't dislike it as much as some of you guys do. But again, I know it's extremely mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rehash of the first film, and then adding some other things. And it could have worked, but then they wasted Lawrence Fishburne. And what I've always wanted to see all these years later, after seeing all these films, is I wanted to see more of the Predator, backstory, their lore, how they operate. Like the comics do a pretty good job about that. Like, okay, so I have in my hand right now as we speak, I have what is called the Alien vs. Predator Essential Comics, and it's basically what they based the first AVP film off of. And there's a character in here named Machiko Noguchi. She was the first human to be she's the first human to be like inducted in the Predator clan, if you will. Okay. Like not like timeline wise, but like in like the first time before they got Alexa Woods with the scar and shit in the first film. But I love those comics, and they gave a backstory for the Predators, and I just want to see that on film. Give us something that's different from what we've got so far. Sure. Because if we have to go to another jungle again with the same shit, it's like, dude, I can just watch the fucking first Predator film. That's like the best one. Right. And I even love Predator 2. Those two like films Predator are great.
Predator 2 is the weird dude. Predator 2 has the most crazy unfair Rotten Tomatoes score I've ever seen.
I'll agree.
I have no idea why, but it is like super low. It's in the critics. I think it's in like the 20s or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
That's ridiculous. Predator 2 is actually a pretty confident film.
Why I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes? They suck at fucking judging, dude. Like, I'll sit there.
I agree with some stuff, but like
a lot of it just sucks. I'm like, dude, there's no way. Like, I'll sit there and see a movie that's like so highly talked about everywhere, and Rotten Tomatoes is like, we gave it a 30. I'm like, motherfuckers are talking about it saying it needs a year award. Like, what are y'all talking about? Why are y'all giving it a 30?
That's why I don't listen to critics.
Lane, Puppet Master 2 is not that good. All right, let's just settle down. Settle down.
First off, I'm not a big Puppet Master fan.
Nor am I.
I love the original Puppet Master.
Puppet Master's great.
That's one franchise I never got into. I don't know why. I never got into that.
I love Puppet Master. Puppet Master's great.
Tomatoes sometimes just doesn't have taste.
Yeah. So just to kind of bring it back in here, just a little bit here. Ted, I know we haven't heard from you yet regarding what got you into horror. Give us a little story, Ted.
Master's awesome. Y'all can suck my butthole.
Oh my god, he made me laugh so much I choked him on laugh.
I guess all kidding aside, I guess I got getting into horror was pretty natural. It was just kind of pretty much what you guys did. I mean, I grew up in the VHS video rental era. So, I would browse the horror section, look at all the cool cover art stuff as a kid, get curious. And then when I was about 7, my mom sat me down and was like, we're going to watch this movie called I Spit on Your Grave. No, I'm just kidding. That didn't happen.
Oh, God. Then we followed it up with Last House on the Left, best double feature of all time. Thanks, Mom.
And then, so growing up, just looking at the VHS covers, I kind of started. Halloween Curse of Michael Myers came out in '95, and I had some older cousins who went and saw it, and they were talking about it. So I kind of begged my dad to take me to see it. I just want to check it out. So that was my first real introduction to the horror genre.
Yeah,
and then it just kind of just springboard into the stuff like Puppet Master, and then Child Play, and then Friday, Freddy. It just kind of just ballooned, and I fell in love with the whole genre. So I mean, mine's not really an elaborate thing, it's just kind of just a natural progression of my film taste.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Speaking of Halloween films, has anybody noticed that the subsequent sequels after Part 3 follow the Pink Panther trilogy names? Curse, Revenge, and then...
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that
funny.
until now, but yeah.
That is funny. I never noticed that either. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, so I think it was like, what was it? Return, Curse, or was it
Return, Revenge, and Curse.
There you go. So, anytime I think about that, I actually got that from Cinemassacre whenever he did his reviews on the Halloween movies. That he always pointed that out. He's like, yeah, it's they have a Pink Panther trilogy going. So anytime I think of those 3 movies, it's always the Pink Panther trilogy of the Halloween series.
That's pretty
well,
good.
I want to apologize to Ted's dad for you to drag him to the theater to watch fucking Curse of Michael Myers, though. Because honestly, that makes Puppet Master look like the Shawshank Redemption. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a fan of part 6 is fucking. I remember like 13, 14-year-old Andy, when I first watched that, I literally told myself, when I watched it, I was like, that was fucking weird. And then like 39-year-old Andy watched this past Halloween. That movie's fucking weird. It's just so fucking bizarre.
It really is.
What's really...
the Thorn trilogy.
Yeah. What's really sad though is that the last sound that Donald Pleasance ever uttered on film was him screaming like a fucking maniac. Yeah. I feel so bad for that because it's like, okay, so the way they set it up is that, okay, so it's like Donald Pleasance or Loomis is going to be the new caretaker for Michael, but then it's like, well, where would you go with it? Because then Donald Pleasance dies, and it's like, well, shit, we're out of ideas. Fuck it, let's do another soft reboot. Halloween H2O.
I'll tell you where they were going with it. They were going right to the grave with that timeline. Speaking of that ended that timeline. Yeah. That actually ended that is the OG, or that's the OG. Yeah, that's the OG timeline. Yeah. Right? 1, 2, because 1, 2.
If you watch the director's cut and not the producer's cut, the actual director's cut of Curse.
Yeah.
The final shot when you see just the mask in the whatever the lab or whatever. Instead of hearing Loomis scream, they take his audio from the it's over, Michael, it's all over, and then they show the pumpkin roll credits. I mean, that movie has so many different versions that haven't even officially been released.
It was a shit show.
That's the director's cut.
Yeah. I have people on Twitter.
You got the TV version. You've got the work print. It's all just there's so much stuff.
I've seen the producers and the director's cut, and I'll have people on Twitter reply, "Oh, you got to see the producer's cut," and I just reply, "Yeah, I've seen that too." And guess what? It sucks. I don't care. I don't care if Pleasance is doing Dr. Loomis is doing the doing the dialogue, the narration in the beginning instead of Paul Rudd. I don't care. It's not that big of a difference. It doesn't matter. Yeah,
It's the
they
shit
both-
show one way or the
I
other. Pick your
wasn't sure
poison.
that Michael Myers was still alive. But I'm going to go to the countryside to retire now.
Yeah, that
type my memoir.
It shot
Listening
that
to Howard
timeline.
Stern on the radio.
Dude, it's so they wanted Howard Stern to play that role too. He almost did, I guess. They were gonna pay him.
You know, the one thing that I'm
Not
kind
even
of
Howard
divided
Stern
on.
wanted to be in the movie.
Nope.
You know, the one thing I'm divided on with the first two Halloween films is like, for me, when I first watched Halloween 1978, I just love that ending. That Loomis looks down, that Michael's gone, and you see the look in his eyes. He's like, he knows, like he knew that. It's almost like he knew that Michael wasn't dead.
Right.
And that was just so chilling, because it's like, okay, he's still out there. So if you never watch Halloween 2, it's like, man, he's still out there somewhere. And had they have gone with like the horror anthology like style that they were going with Halloween 3, I could definitely have seen like a Michael Myers like story return. Like if they were to do like a different story and then have like, like they have like an Easter egg of there was the Haddonfield murders or something. It's like, oh my God, this is in the same universe and Michael Myers is still out there, But instead, Halloween 3, we just see the movie on the TV, and it's like, well, shit. So much for that crossover.
Yeah, no, it doesn't even take place in the same universe. Yeah, don't get me started on Season of the Witch. Oh God, that is the one movie that is like rocks the horror community. It is split right down the middle on that movie. Either you dig it, you love the shit out of it, or you're just not a fan at all. Yeah, it's a pulverizing movie in horror cinema. It is. Yeah, that's.
Well, now I want to see Michael Myers wear a silver shamrock mask. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
I want to see Michael Myers in space.
Michael Myers in space.
No, thank you.
Michael X.
Michael
Call it
X.
Michael X.
Yeah, Uber Myers, right? Oh my God.
God. So good.
And it's like he gets cybernetic upgrade like Jason. It's like, okay, now his mask is fucking metallic. He looked like his mask would be like a stormtrooper mask or something.
He's wearing a Star Trek vest.
No, we got to figure out how to. If you would have done like the 5th anthology and Michael comes back, you got to you can't let Stonehenge feel fucking left behind. You got to get the Stonehenge plot. And God, I hate that plot. Why do people love that movie? It's not that good. It's very average. I'm sorry. It's not terrible.
Yeah,
it's not. It's very. I've always felt it's pretty good.
I mean, yeah.
I wrote Tom Atkins from it. It might be unwatchable, actually.
I mean, I would say that it's like a mediocre film. I mean, I would say that it's much better than the Halloween sequels we got. Because
it's definitely better. Yeah, it's better than. Well, here's the thing. I'd still probably rather watch the others, but I won't argue that. Yeah, it's probably a better, well done film for sure than 5, 6, and Resurrection for sure. Right. Thing with Season of the Witch was always weird to me. It was just. I don't know. I feel like if they were going to go the anthology route, they should have just done it in part 2. I feel like once you did part 2, then the anthology idea just goes out the window. You can't.
Yeah.
That's I think was the biggest mistake with it. Why not just call it Season of the Witch? I get it. You want to call it Halloween 3. It's to deceive people and get them in the seats, and that's exactly what they did. That's another reason I don't like that movie. Yeah. That's true. They did, man. They tricked some motherfuckers. You didn't have to be dumb though. There was newspaper clippings of fucking Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins from The Fog on the fucking cover. Halloween 3. Yes, dude.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes. It's funny because she actually does a voiceover in the movie.
She does. That's how they got away with it. That's exactly how they got away with it. Because technically, she is in the fucking movie. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
But you know what? I always remember Tom Atkins from The Fog. That and Escape from New York. That's when I remember him the most. So,
love Tom.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to meet him someday.
No, it's good. Yeah. I feel like here's the thing with Season of the Witch. I feel like it's one of these things. I don't think it's as bad as most people make it out to be, and I also don't think it's as good as some people try to make it out to be. It's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle.
That's kind of like the bridge that connected what was good about Halloween to what eventually became bad about it. It's like that middle film that connects the good and the bad. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
Halloween 3 is caught in the middle of a franchise that it really has no business being in because it has no connection. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a horror anthology series between 2 and 4. Here you go. And it's just a shame. But
Yeah.
that's why I'm glad that Halloween 2018 came out. I mean, sure, it felt a little bit like the original Halloween in some ways, but as far as comparing it to everything else we had got after the first two Halloween films, it was a nice breath of fresh air. And I hope that Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends knock it out of the ballpark, because I think that this franchise had suffered enough. It's like, let's get something that was really gonna pop. So
Yeah.
and so I'm waiting for that pop effect for Friday the 13th. Because honestly, what I would really like to see is for Robert Englund to come back as Freddy and Kane Hodder as Jason to do a Freddy versus Jason film to kind of give a final send off for Robert Englund before he passes. Because eventually these guys are gonna pass away, and we're never gonna get that chance. And since Kane was practically robbed of that role in Freddy versus Jason anyway, I feel like he deserves that chance. They both do, because after that fucking teaser in the final Friday, it's like, and then you had to wait years later for it, for Freddy versus Jason. It's like, do it again before it's too late. Get that crossover to really, make both franchises kind of come to life again.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really pisses me off about Freddy vs. Jason, just the way that they treated Kane. Because I think it was in the Chris White documentaries. I think there was one or an interview he did where he basically Kane said that he basically got a script and it made it seem like he had the part, and then he found out that they gave it to somebody else.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's always bothered me too. It's a shame.
It is. Very much so.
Yeah,
Sore subject.
People, Kane is one of those people who are definitely passionate about playing Jason. I mean, for fuck's sakes, he was part 9 in Jason X. I mean, that's some dedication right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course
That
in
is-
the game too.
Oh yeah, exactly. And the game, you're right. He did the mocap. You're right.
Yep.
And it's such a damn shame, man. Like, honestly, he could have really rocked Freddy versus Jason. Don't get me wrong. He could have also he probably could have made the 2009 really good. I like Derek Mears as Jason.
Yeah.
I do.
Derek Mears is great. Honestly, for me, the reboot, that's the best thing about it is Jason. He's really cool. He's badass. That's really it.
It makes Jason scary again.
Yeah. No, Derek Mears is phenomenal.
Yeah.
In fact, I love him as Swamp Thing. Like, and that show that got unfortunately fucking canceled for no reason. Derek Mears is a phenomenal actor. He knows how to play. He's just like Kane. He knows how to play the big scary people.
Here's a little fun fact for you. He actually played as one of the Predators in the Predators movie, the 2010 one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yep, he did. I believe he was the Berserker, the one with the skull, like the bottom jaw. He was that Predator.
Yeah, I believe you're correct on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really nice to find out.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff. Well, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up here. I do want to thank you guys all for being on the show tonight. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having all of us. It was fun.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun, guys. So, yeah, thanks for coming on for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll try to talk more next time.
Yeah,
you're kind of quiet there, Andy, tonight. That's all right. But hope to collab here again soon. I know we got some collabs coming up. Even with We Came From Beneath the Sea, and obviously, Lane, I know you got some stuff coming up here where you're trying to get some of us back on there again. So I'm looking forward to it, and I would love to have some of you guys back on the show again here in the future as well. But
yeah, likewise. Honestly, we have ideas. Once 2021 starts, we'd like to get. We're going to try to do a rankings episode every month, and I think we're going to bring on people from the network for that.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'd like to bring more of you guys on too. I just have to get the technology figured out first.
Right.
So I know how to do it
just
properly.
ask any of us. There's several ways. There's several ways you can do it.
There is.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll definitely do that because I'd like to bring you guys on. I think it would be fun to have these discussions. Bounce off ideas. Like some of our segments, I think would be really cool to have your guys' opinions on, and like, how would you like, for just doing a little bit of a plug in here, our Horrors of the Multiverse segment, where we take a character from a horror or sci-fi movie and put them in a different movie, and we discuss like how that would affect the movie.
That's awesome.
That would be so cool.
And in my little horror origin story, that I did that stuff when I was a kid. Plugging in the Predator into fucking Silver Bullet. So,
I know. I saw you mentioned that earlier. That's hilarious. Yeah. It's funny. I didn't realize a lot of you guys were all like Predator nerds, like me.
Oh
yeah, I love Predator.
Yeah. So, like, you guys already gave me an idea for a rankings episode. Ranking the aliens and predators, all of them, put them all in one list and rank them.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah,
easy.
I like that idea.
Idea. That's it. Boom. Episode's over. Thank you for listening.
Damn, slow down there, but I probably agree with you. But I don't know. Alien and Aliens those are pretty badass films, man.
Yep.
Can we all agree that Alien 3 was very depressing? Like,
yeah.
I mean, after everything that you go through in Aliens, and then Ripley is like, okay, she's gonna have a really good happy ending. Yep. You get to Alien 3. Oh yeah, everybody's dead but you. Oh, and on top of that, the thing you hate the most, well, it's inside you now. Good luck.
Yeah. Studio fucked that film up bad. That was David Fincher's first film. Yeah, because he was a huge music video director.
Yep.
I've watched 4 Fincher films this month. I've been on a Fincher kick all month, so he's fresh in my head.
Right.
I watched Gone Girl before we started this, and now I'm still completely shook. Yeah. All right. Are we ending this episode?
Yes, we are ending this. So
guys, stop talking, please.
Seriously, guys, I'm trying to get out of here. But no, thank you again for being on the show tonight, guys. We definitely do appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening. As always, you can reach out to us through our social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at CLS Podcast. As we leave, though, Mark and Ted, are there any final words of wisdom? I'm going to take that as a no.
You're asking me.
Yes, I'm asking.
I'm Ted. I make bad decisions. That's why I'm where I'm at in my life, because I make bad decisions.
Oh, Jesus. So I'm going to take that as a no, then?
My name's Ted.
Oh, God. Okay, Ted.
Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Anyways. Well, if nothing else, we will see you guys next week.
This episode of the Crystal Lake Soldiers podcast is brought to you by the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Check us out at www.clspodcast.com or join in the conversation on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at CLS Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, campers.